Consumers want natural. You want affordable and effective. Everyone wins when you breed with Affimilk heat detection. Reliable heat-based breeding for high preg rates. That's the power of Affimilk.
Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with California Dairy Magazine, reporting to you here today with Paul Sousa from Western United Dairies. They just had a meeting here in Merced on a dairy kitchen table gathering that they do about once a month or so, and meeting with dairy producers around the state, talking about certain issues and things that are important to our California dairy producers. One of the issues that's kind of ongoing is ensuring the neighboring communities to dairies that they have clean drinking water. Dairies and the manure from dairies produces a lot of nitrates that leach down into the soil, and there's some upcoming regulations, there's permits, there's letters that dairy producers are getting. Can you tell us what this all means and what the expectations are, especially for our Central Valley dairy producers?
Yeah, sure. This is part of the CV Salts program that has been adopted about 5 years ago. And the goal was to change how water quality is regulated to really, I think, drive changes and drive improvements. The Central Valley was divided into Priority 1 and Priority 2 areas. Priority 1 areas got these letters about 3 years ago, and so they are well down the road to solving these issues. Priority 2 areas just got a postcard that they're going to be getting a letter officially kicking off this regulatory process in December. And so what that means is that they need to form local nitrate management zones. They need to raise funding to test wells of domestic well owners to make sure that their water is safe to drink. And if it's not, to supply clean drinking water to them so that everybody has safe water as quickly as possible. The Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program takes care of that for dairies, so it's not like it's a big burden that they have to deal with. It really is pretty straightforward. They will see in their Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program bills fees. Priority 1 areas have already been seeing those fees for a few years. Priority 2 areas are going to start to see that next year in 2024. You just got to, be a part of that program, which most dairies are, almost all dairies are. And so there were things that dairy and other businesses got out of this also. So we're providing safe drinking water to those that need it. But we got some flexibility in the regulation, so there were positive things. The industry was supportive of this. And not only dairy, city wastewater treatment plants, food processors, anybody with a water quality permit really has been at the table for about a decade and a half setting up the CV Salts thing and getting it in place. Environmental justice advocates were a part of that, and there was the benefit that folks get clean drinking water right away. And so dairy producers just need to be aware, if you're in a Priority 2 management zone, you're going to get a letter in December. There's really not much you have to do if you're a member of the Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program. That is going to be taken care of by them, but you need to be aware of this and be engaged of what's happening.
And as far as some of these solutions and things that will need to be done, especially in Priority Zone 2, I think you said, water testing, are there some solutions? You mentioned here today maybe some technologies that dairy producers may be investing in to reduce the amount of nitrogen contamination in the groundwater.
Yeah, so happy to. Yeah, and it's important to point to solutions. I mean, this isn't just something that's happening. Dairies have to be, doing something on their dairy that's more, applicable and direct to them. And the big thing is a whole farm balance. We're trying to get this concept out there of, you look at the nitrogen that the cows are producing with the manure on your dairy. You look at how much of that you can safely use on your dairy, on your crops, agronomically. And then there's likely to be some excess amount. And that excess amount, you have to export it. You can export it as compost. You can export it as we're looking at equipment that turns it into fertilizers potentially that can be used on other farms. And so getting that excess off of your farm, getting it onto other farms to displace commercial fertilizer on those farms so that we have a better whole farm balance on our dairies and a better nutrient balance in our communities overall, that we're not applying excess nitrate. And so A big thing is getting those nutrients. A lot of dairies are flush dairies. They're using water to move the manure around. Getting those nutrients in a solid form, keeping them out of the liquid phase so that you can put them on a truck and move them down the road, compost them, for example. And so more efficient solid manure separators that use flocculants to bind the smaller particles where the nutrients really are in our flush water and be able to separate that out into a solid form that you can then compost, potentially vacuuming. Vermifiltration is something, kind of a new technology that we're seeing. There's a pilot in California already and looks like others are going to be built. It's a worm bed where you sprinkle the liquid manure over the top of it and it denitrifies. That nitrogen can remove about 80% of it into the nitrogen gas that makes up 80% of the atmosphere. And so that's not an issue. That's another way that you can export it. You can export it on a truck as compost, or you can export it to the atmosphere as nitrogen gas. There's a number of technologies, a number of things. Probably the simplest thing a dairy can do is increase the amount of acres that they can apply liquid manure to. If you've got 80 acres, just down the road from your dairy that you're not applying liquid manure to, if you could run a pipeline with, potentially NRCS funding to help you do that, and displace the commercial fertilizer that you're using on that place, that helps balance the nitrogen loading. And that's a simple thing that dairies already understand, are already doing. And so I think dairies are going to try to implement these conventional strategies as much as possible first before going to something high tech or something new or something expensive. But achieving that whole farm balance, looking at your reports, talking to your environmental consultant, hey, where do I stand and where do I need to be on this, I think is an important thing for dairies over the next couple of years.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you mentioning some incentive funding, through NRCS and programs like that, because they sound like costly solutions. So we appreciate, directing producers to any help that they can get on that front.
And there are other sources, actually, now that you mentioned that. So there are other sources in addition to NRCS, which has been there for a long time. The state is putting up a lot of funding in the form of the Alternative Manure Management Program and now the Dairy Plus program. That's a new program that just recently had applications closed. That was funding from a USDA grant from the Climate Smart Commodities program that is specifically looking at this. It's looking at reducing methane, but you have to also improve water quality. And the same thing of being able to better manage nutrients in technology. So they're funding things like the vermifiltration that I talked about, the separation using flocculants, and a number of things that are helping to improve that. So there is a lot of funding. There's more funding than I've ever seen in my career with Western to help dairy producers. A lot of it is aimed at methane, but it also benefits water quality. And so if a dairy producer can look at, hey, I can solve my methane issue at the same time with the same technology that I solve my water quality funding or my water quality issue, I think that's a win-win. And so there is a lot of funding out there, and if folks can find a solution that works on their dairy that can be funded through one of these programs, I think it's a great opportunity to do that now.
Well, thank you so much for the update. I'm sure dairy producers can contact you as they look for some of those funding opportunities and navigate having to, fill out the applications.
Yep.
And doing so. Read more about these things in California Dairy Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.